Hi there, guys. Again, thank you very much for coming along for us today. So what we've put together is in conjunction with Opticommerce, is a lot of hopefully really relevant content for you guys, so you can take away with you today, hopefully, as independent practices as use this. Some of you might be doing a bit of digital advertising already. Some people might have websites. What we've technically found is people tend to be in different states along the journey. And really my aim of today is to give you an insight into, firstly, what we're seeing is happening in your industry, which is really interesting, and why we've taken such an interest in it as a big company as Google. But also to try and get your brains thinking of, what are we doing in this industry, and is it worth us being there? And once you're started that thought process of, what does it actually look like to advertise, and what are the different avenues you can go down. So a little bit about me and our partnership with Opticommerce. So my role is an agency development manager at Google, so I'm based out of a Leeds and London office. We work with, in my department, is a very, very select number of digital marketing agencies within the UK. Now, to be able to get the support from Google, those agencies will have to have met a certain criteria. And that's a certain performance criteria, but also that they're showing potential of growing and helping specific amounts of people within a certain area. So, our biggest interest, and you'll see in a minute when we go into sort of what's happening in the industry, we're seeing a tremendous amount of growth in the optical industry. And Opticommerce is the main agency that we work with in terms of relaying the information that we've got at Google to support their clients. So a little bit about Google. I don't know how much people know about it. Obviously, we know the term I'll Google it. Google's been around for 19 years now. Started up by two guys called Larry and Sergey whilst they were at university in Stanford. Does anybody know, or anybody aware? It's a really difficult question, but what the original name was of Google before it was registered? No? I didn't know before I started. So it was originally, before they registered it was actually called Backrub. Not sure what the context was, is you do a search and I'll rub your back and I'll rub yours. I'm not too sure. So when they came to, went to their branding agency and came up with different ideas, the original name was going to be Google. And Google is a mathematical term which is 1 plus 100 zeros after it. And rumour has it that when they actually put down on the registration form, they misspelled Google, but then decided to stay with Google because it sounded better. So as you're probably already aware, we don't do things as normal companies would. So give you some examples. Our first piece of storage hardware was actually built into some Lego blocks. We still got that in our museum in California. And you can just about see Larry and Sergey in the background there. We employ a load of goats in America and in the UK, wherever we've got grass as gardeners. So instead of employing companies, it's a more ecological way of keeping my grass nice and trim. And one I thought it was really cool to share with you guys is in our main sort of foyer area in our main head office in California, in Silicon Valley, is we've got a genuine fossilized T-Rex skeleton. And he's there all the time. Sometimes you get dressed up for Halloween and things like that. But it's all well and cool, but the actual message of that being there is for us as a company to make sure that we don't become dinosaurs and we don't become extinct, and we're ever moving with the times and changing and keeping up with things. So through following that ethos, that's allowed us to become one of the biggest companies in the world, but the #1 search platform in the world. So what that equates to is currently in 2017, we have 77.5% market share. The next following along is Bing, which have about 8%. So in comparison, our next competitor, has a much smaller amount. And you might see that a little bit in a minute about, what our ethos was and how it's enabled us. But by being the biggest search engine in the world, what that equates to in real terms is around 40,000 searches every second globally and around 3.5 billion searches per day. Now, the original context or the original strategy that Sergey and Larry came up with is that at the time there was no search engine that would adequately match a user searching for a piece of content with the answer or with that content that they were looking for. It wouldn't do it quickly, it wouldn't do it correctly, and it wouldn't do it quick enough. So they set out to make this platform that would do this quickly enough. And they actually first started out with looking at doing it for businesses. So if you go onto somebody's website and you search on their website for something and it picks out words and you can find on their website, they originally started off with that concept. But later on developed it into what we all know today is the Google platform. So what we'll see is everybody who searches on Google is you'll see people searching a keyword, as we call it, and Google matches it to that specific content. Now, that is what we call SEO or natural listings. So that means that's more content driven. So that could be anybody who's looking for dry eye syndrome or information around that will see at the bottom of the page here, they'll see that information or the content that they're looking for. Now, very, very early on in this concept, these guys figured out that when someone's searching for something, around about 90 to 95% of the time, we can actually directly relate what they're searching for to a product or a service that a company is advertising or wants to advertise. So what we enable to do is, or enable companies to do very early on, was actually advertise to these people who are searching for content. Now, where it's the strongest, or we would say it's one of the strongest ways of marketing, is that there's no other form of marketing to somebody who is searching for your product in that real time. So any other form of marketing, you know, we can put our message out to a wide range of people and, you know, maybe only 5% will read it and 2% out of that will actually take heed or look for the service. Whereas what we're able to do is through a separate platform is enable you guys as companies to advertise these people whilst they're actually looking for content such as dry eye syndrome. So what you can do is put your advert in front of them whilst they're searching. Now if we think about it, it's actually two different platforms. So this is everything that we take care of, Google does, but the platform that advertisers use, so if you've got your website and you want to direct people to it and getting people there and cutting out all of this way through a paid search is what we call AdWords. So if you're not already, it's probably good for you to go and have a look at creating an AdWords account or speaking to somebody about getting an AdWords account created for you. So if you can imagine we've got 3.5 billion searches per day, what's enabled us to become one of the strongest companies in the world is data. And data is really key at the moment. And you'll find a lot of companies won't actually charge you for something, but what they will do is they'll capture your data. And under strict laws, obviously, we have to keep that in-house. But what that enables us to do is then when people are searching, we can see what they're searching for, where they're searching from, at what time of day. And what's really strong with this is then we pass that on to companies such as yourselves to then enable you to advertise to these people better. So one key aspect of data that we like to look at, especially at a very high level view for an industry, is the amount of growth. So how many people are searching a year ago and how many people are searching now, and to see what's happening in that industry. Now, what we're actually finding is, and one of the main reasons that we've partnered up with Opticommerce is within the optometry sector or industry, we've actually seen that there's 14% growth over the last year. So that means that there's 14% more people searching for your product or services than there was a year ago. Now I'll come back onto the decrease in CPC and explain that a little bit more. What we're also able to do then is then subcategorize that and say, right, okay, if we take optometry as a whole, then we subcategorize that into eyewear and contact lenses and laser treatment, and we can see where the growth is and see if it still follows the same path. And what we've found is that eyewear is second to optometry. So there's 12% more people searching for eyewear products than there was last year. Now, what is even really more interesting to us is that there's a decrease in what we call CPC. So a CPC, in layman's terms, is the amount of money that an advertiser or a company pays to advertise on Google. So a CPC is a cost per click. So what we're seeing is that even though there's growth within your industry, we're actually seeing that the price that people are paying is actually decreasing. Now, there's only really one way that we can term this, or there's only really one reason why this would be happening. And if we can imagine your marketplace is a cake, what we're seeing is because our pricing structure is that all of the advertisers that are advertising at the minute are taking a piece of that cake. And then at the end of it, there's actually too much left over. So there's an abundance of people searching for your product or service. So there's not enough advertisers out there actually advertising to the people who want this product or service. And then when we started working with Opticommerce and the likes of SiteCare, then now we're finding out that there's a lot of practices, a lot of independent practices that aren't advertising either on Google or digitally. So it's up to us to educate and help you guys get into that sector. Now, one thing I would say is that, and a key takeaway I've got at the end of these is that there's never been more people searching for that product or service that you guys offer than there ever has been. And it's never been at a cheaper price than it is now. And we can only ever see that the amount of people increase, and I'll show you that in a minute, but also the price will decrease until a lot more people come on board, and then it will level out. So there's never really been a better time to start advertising. Now, what we're also able to pull data on is when people are searching, you know, the time of day, the day of the week, the month of the year. So on the first diagram, what we're showing here is not technically when you guys will be busy as practices, but when the most or the busiest month is for people searching for your product or service. So at the minute we can see, you know, we've got a bit of a constant growth on a heat graph, but October tends to be the hottest month. Also in December, mostly we see this in every industry really that isn't, you know, fast-paced consumer goods, that we see there's a dip in December as people start buying and setting up for Christmas. Now, how we use this is in terms of a recommendation and working with agencies such as Opticommerce, is if we've got this data, then we're able to help and provide information to companies and say, this is when the best time is to be advertising. You know, if you're looking at setting up this advertising, when's the best time? Where should we be placing our budget throughout the year? You know, and very simply from this recommendation, we would say throughout the whole year, maybe it's a little bit less in December, but we need to make sure that A, we're sorted and optimized for October, but also got a good amount of budget on it, because this is when the most potential is. Now, it's all well and good, you know, I can come and say to you guys, there's all this growth and there's a decrease, and, you know, I could be telling you a load of hoofies, I could be telling you anything. So what we like to do is cross-reference our data. So if we take the actual amount of growth and put it aside for a second, if we just look at the times when people are searching, we can see if we put this into a 5-year plan over the past 5 years, we can see the times that when people are searching, the amount of people searching is still increasing. So it's cross-referencing and showing us that there is that growth there. So you can see that even December is our quietest month, but each year, year on year, there's still more people searching in December than there was the year before. And going back to what I said originally was about there's never been more growth in this industry than there is now. As you can see here, where the green circle is that's where we are now. And our systems aren't even actually able to keep up with it, and it's actually gone off the chart at the moment. Again, obviously, coming up to December, we'll see a bit of a lull, but then afterwards, it'll pick back up. And then again, next year, you know, we're forecasting the same amount of growth. What we're also able to look into is what people are doing searches on. So are they searching on mobile? So yeah, we can see that of that 14% growth, there's actually 25% more people searching on a mobile phone for your product or service in the UK than there was last year. We've seen a 3% increase in the amount of people searching on a tablet, but a 7% increase of people that it's made up of the growth on PC. Now again, it's all back to how do we use this data and make it relevant to you guys and give you a recommendation. Well, what we'd say is, and Paul goes into this in a lot of detail, what we've worked on with him, is it's all about presence. So firstly, have we got a presence online to capture that extra potential of people advertising? But also, if we haven't got a mobile optimized advert, or we're not advertising to people on mobile, and we're still taking all of this potential, you know, we're still missing out to a quarter of it because we haven't got our mobile adverts optimized. And Paul will go into a little bit about, you know, how we can help with that. But it's really interesting in this, you know, the key of are we in there, are we in that marketplace? Because really, if you've got a website, even if you've got a great website, you still need to have a way of someone finding you or getting to there. And hopefully that's something that we can help with. So if we put it all together in just a nice simple graph, again, it's just reiterating the fact that mobile, tablet and computer, even though some of them are a bit of a flat line, we're seeing data is increasing year on year, month on month. Now, what's also really important to us is not to let this data just become numbers. You know, we fully understand that there are people at the end of their mobile phones. You know, it's not computers or AI software that's searching for this product or service. So what's really interesting is for us to gain that information and pass on of what the customer journey is. So, you know, what are people doing to cause them to search for you guys or search for your product or service? First, you know, what causes that and what are they doing? So one main barrier that we come across, or speaking to companies such as yourselves, is, you know, if you don't offer a service online, if you don't sell anything online, but you've just got a website for a presence there, is why should we be advertising online? Well, we can see that in your industry, people, or 70% of people who come in store and purchase, 70% of them have already researched that company online before they come in. So again, going back to that presence. So if 30% of people aren't, and that's what your client base is made up of, you know, we have the potential to advertise to these 70% of people. Even if they don't know you, and I'll go into some stats later on, is if they don't even, or they know you already, but they do a search for the same product or service that you do, it's really important that if they make up that 70%, we're advertising to them to make sure we've got a presence there to capture them. So what we term as what causes, or what's the catalyst for someone to search for a product or a service, is what we call a micro moment. A moment in time that causes someone to take out their phone and search for something. And really, this could be, it could be anything. So, you know, it could be anything from 7:15 in the morning, someone finds somewhere to have breakfast local to them. You know, round about 5 to 8, they search for an opticians near me, see who offers that service around about them. You know, then they go on to research the holiday destinations, purchase a new book when their manager's not looking at work. And again, when they come back after their dinner, watching mountain biking videos whilst their manager's not looking. But then at the end of the day, they actually come back, and from the information they've already looked at, they book an eye test. And what we would term that is as a conversion. So it's someone who searched for you, they've come back to your website and they've converted, they've interacted with you and given you an ultimate result that you guys would class as a conversion. Now, interesting question that I would give out to you guys is, and you'll see why in a minute, is where do you think we would say is the best moment or micro moment there for us to advertise to somebody? Where would you say? Okay. It's not a trick question, but actually it's everywhere. Because these people at the end of their phones that are searching for things, they're people. We can't control what they search for. It could be anything. They could be looking anywhere. They could be searching for anything. So if we look at the advertising side of Google, through different platforms, what we're able to do is actually allow companies to advertise to people at every single point of their day. If someone's on their phone, it doesn't matter if they're looking at your service or not, we're still able to tell where they are, what time of day it is, and advertise to these people. And it's really important to understand the customer journey. So if someone's searching for, and we'll go into it later on this afternoon in a bit of a workshop, but if someone is searching for opticians near me, and we haven't advertised to them here, but we are here, there's a much greater chance that they will choose you for a service if we've already advertised to them. So some interesting stats on that is, showing up in these search results gets your brand to be chosen and not just seen. But some interesting stats for your industry is, so many customers at the moment we find are not brand committed, and this is increasing ever so. So 51% of smartphone users have discovered a new company or a new product whilst they've been conducting a search on their phone. And then to follow on for that, what that means is if people are searching and they're finding new services and finding new companies, that means it gives you a shot at your competitors' clients. So it doesn't mean that the big nationals they will be advertising, but it doesn't mean for any necessary terms of why you can't advertise and take their customers as well. So 1 in 3 smartphone users actually purchase from a company other than the one they actually set out to purchase from in the first place, just by being there. And then what that also equates to is, so back to the likes of the CPC, so cost per click, so cost per advert that somebody clicks on. If your advert shows in the Google results and nobody clicks on it, you don't get charged. But what we can show is that even if your advert's there and nobody clicks on it, nobody interacts on it, and they just subconsciously see your name, we know that they're actually 46% more likely to remember your brand when they come to search for it again. And what our term is, it says brand awareness there, but it's brand recall. So coming and thinking to themselves, it might even be 3 months later when somebody else asks them, oh, I really need to book an eye test. Do you know any opticians around here? Oh yeah, actually, I remember. What's that name of the practice that's just down the road? You're 46% more likely to remain in their head just by showing up there and compared to not being. So hopefully there's some very high level stats. What we are able to do is if you get in touch with Paul or Richard, is we can put stats together to show what the growth in your area actually looks like. So a specific location down to postcode. But some key takeaways from that really is, I've went over them before, but there's never been more people searching for your product or service than there ever has been than now. That's constantly growing, as you can see over the 5 years. We don't see any reason why that would drop. There's a huge potential in that area. So as I said, you will have the big sort of 4 or 5 national companies advertising, but because we're seeing a growth in people searching and there's not enough advertisers out there at the moment, there's still potential for you to be there. And I'll show you what that looks like when we do a bit of an activity later on. And again, presence is really, really important, because at the end of the day, if you can put all your time and money into a great website, but if you haven't got a presence there or someone being able to find you, then unfortunately you won't be found. Excellent. Has anybody got any questions or any comments, or was that at least a bit useful to give you a taste of what's happening? Yeah? Good. I will be able to send these slides out afterwards. I know the guys have got someone who's at their practice that they want to send it out after later. So just get in touch with us, guys. So thank you very much.